Margaret Sanger, a pioneer in women's rights. In her early years, she was born to Irish immigrants in 1879. She was from a large family who experienced poverty, which made her associate childhood as one filled with fighting, unemployment, cruelty, debts, drunkenness, and quarreling. She vowed to never live a life of suffrage like her mother did. Margaret modeled the way by her continued fight for women's rights and birth control. Margaret clarified her values by knowing that she wanted women to never suffer as her mother did from 18 known pregnancies and many births, to meet her demise at age 40 from her 11th live birth. Margaret found that her mother wasn't the only female that had no say in her own body, and if she wanted to become pregnant, let alone a mother to another child. She set her values by dedicating her life's work to the women's rights to birth control. Margaret set the by becoming a nurse and helping impoverished women suffering from illnesses that were mostly associated with pregnancy, childbirth, and illegal abortions. She noticed the horrible way that the poor had no way of helping themselves in birth control, and only the rich had ways of dealing with these issues. She once went to the aid of an impoverished 28-year-old woman named Sadie Sachs, whom had 3 children and was near death from blood poisoning following a self-induced abortion. As Margaret aided Sadie, she overheard the doctor and Sadie's conversation. Sadie said to the doctor, "Another baby will finish me, I suppose." The doctor simply stated, "Any more capers, young woman, and there will be no need for me." Sadie agreed and asked, "Well, what can I do?" And he replied, "You want your cake and eat it too, do ya? Tell your husband to go sleep on the roof." Margaret had the look of dissolution from Sadie's face burned into her mind. About 3 months later, Margaret was called to the help of Sadie once again, and from the exact same cause. But to Margaret's dismay, Sadie died 10 minutes later. Margaret recalled how both Sadie and her husband had pleaded with her for the knowledge to have control of this, and to which was their right, but would not, from that moment forward, merely keep people alive. Things were about to change. Margaret inspired a shared vision by setting out to make abortion and birth control legal for women. She envisioned a time when women were in control of their own body by having the knowledge legally to prohibit life and to end a pregnancy if that's what she chose. She looked for help by enlisting others like doctors, but she quickly found out that many of them know the same or less than she did regarding birth control. Many of them felt fine about ignoring the issues and assumed that the poor enjoyed breeding and would not use any contraception anyway because that was their luxury. She couldn't wait any longer. Women were dying. Per Public Health Then and Now, published in July 1980, Volume 70, Number 7, it is estimated that at this time there were 2 million illegal abortions annually in the U.S., which many were fatal, and 25,000 women were dying during childbirth due to the poor physical conditions. Others simply just chose to end their life by suicide. She did not want to just preserve the lives. She wanted to protect and enhance their lives with choices. At this time, she found herself alone. She had an opportunity in Europe where her husband wanted to study art. She found her support there. Birth control was openly practiced there, due to which the birth rate had declined for 3 generations. It was the duty of the wife to regulate the number of children by way of using family concoctions such as solutions, tampons, and suppositories. To many, these concoctions were handed down through the mother's side. She had all of the information she needed. She returned to the U.S. and published a newspaper called The Women Rebel. Margaret challenged the process by using media supporting illegal birth control and risking her own freedom to circulate the necessary information to help women with their God. Per the resource, The History Teacher, Volume 49, Number 1, from November 2015, Margaret married her husband William, who is a member of the Socialist Party, which led her to become a columnist for the Socialist Party newspaper, titled The New York Call. She was able to write about birth control. This is when she created her own newspaper as well, The Woman Rebel, which illustrated the need and urging for women to use birth control, but did not provide the much sought-after info of what they were to do and how to use these methods to control birth control. After several issues, they grabbed the attention of Anthony Comstock, who was in charge of any publication he deemed to be inappropriate, obscene, lewd, and filthy to fall under the Comstock laws. She was soon indicted on charges due to the illegal information regarding birth control. She fled to England to escape imprisonment, where she met a population control, but before leaving U.S., she printed 100,000 copies of a pamphlet titled Family and Limitations. During her time abroad, her ex-husband was arrested for circulating that pamphlet, to which she knew it was time to come back to the States to help him fight this fight. When she arrived, she was held for trial for 4 indictments, but her search for opportunity was realized when the charges were dropped due to the opposition realizing that they were making a martyr of her. They also realized that the trial was helping her gaining supporters for the birth control movement. Her arrest brought attention from wealthy supporters. With these supporters, they asked President Woodrow Wilson to allow the circulation of birth control pamphlets. This milestone only brought more desire to continue her crusade. Margaret enabled others to act by recruiting her sister, a nurse, and a fellow crusader to work in the first birth control center in America, opened on October 16, 1916 in New York. She developed confidence and competence from the 500 patients, men, who were seen at the clinic in the short 10 days it was open. Margaret was arrested along with her sister and the employee for circulating information about illegal birth control. Despite her attorney arguing that this was a violation of her freedom of speech, she was imprisoned for 30 days. Her 30 days of incarceration strengthened others to act by way legal for doctors to give advice regarding contraception. In 1917, Margaret Sanger published a magazine, The Birth Control Review, that eventually became part of the American Birth Control League, which later became Planned Parenthood Federation of America. Margaret Sanger encouraged the heart as a leader by recognizing many of the contributors through the process of birth control knowledge being legal and a given right to all. She recognized her sister's contribution when she was imprisoned for working in the opening of Margaret's first birth control clinic, and went on a hunger strike, which caused the authorities to force feed her and push her into a coma. Margaret promised to abide by the law to gain permission to see her sister. Her sister eventually awoke from her coma, and Margaret did keep her word. After Margaret served her term for violating the laws of New York and opening the clinic, she found her work to be all worthwhile. In 1918, when Judge Crane of New York gave the approval for doctors to give advice to any woman who could provide a health risk for a pregnancy, not just why, but also how to prevent. Margaret celebrated the values and victories by opening the first legal birth control clinic in 1923, which eventually came to be known as Planned Parenthood.